across Tasmania. This is Tas News 24 with Kane Dello.
I want to deal this morning with a matter that was received a fair bit of Facebook traffic last night. I want to provide some clarification and hopefully ensure that the people can remain calm. It's the matter of the TT line and some photos and some Facebook traffic, and I know that it's raised some concerns for a number of people. I want to be absolutely clear on this. I've been informed that the only camper vans that have been carried on the last two sailings of the Spirit, so the sailings this week, have been caravans that have been owned by Tasmanians.
Hello and welcome to the program. That was Tasmania's Premier Peter Gutwein addressing the media Friday morning. And yes, the heavy Facebook traffic post he is talking about is from independent media, us Tas News 24. Now, the Premier stated that he was advised that caravans and camper vans that had been on the last two sailings on the Spirit of Tasmania, and the topic that was heavily discussed on our social media page, belonged to residents of Tasmania. We know that there were some residents returning home, but there were, however, tourists on board the Spirit that Thursday morning. Now, the Premier went on to say,
in many cases, Tasmanians house their vans on the mainland in Victoria, come back to Tasmania for 6 months. They don't want to pay the Spirit fee, so they house them over there. It's cheaper.
Tasmanians don't want to pay for their Spirit fees, so they house their caravans and campers in other states because it's cheaper? It sounds a little strange to us and begs the question, how does residents in Tasmania house and register their vehicle in other states? The Premier then went on to say,
but they are bringing them home.
But they are bringing them home? So is the vehicle that they have registered in another state home, or is the state that they are in at the time home? We asked a representative from Vic Roads who said in a statement,
to register a vehicle in our state, you must provide evidence that you live in the state and have done so for no less than 3 months. You must also supply documentation showing your address. This can be from a utilities bill, rental or lease agreement, or a Centrelink income statement.
So then it's very clear that Victorian laws state you must reside within the state you're registering your vehicle in. The representative from Vic Roads also went on to say,
heavy penalties apply to anyone flouting the law when registering a vehicle in our state. Victorian laws have strict rules and regulations, and anyone caught not doing the right thing run the risk of prosecution.
So what does that mean for Tasmanians who have their vehicles registered in other states? You may want to follow it up with the state's rules and regulations body your vehicle is registered in, because there are severe penalties for people claiming registration in states they don't live in. Here in Tasmania, you have 3 months to transfer your registration over from another state when you become a resident here. And it's concerning the Premier of Tasmania is showing no objections to residents of his state having their vehicles registered in other states, and goes on to acknowledge the Spirit fees for coming into Tasmania are expensive. However, with Tasmania having some of the cheapest vehicle registration across most states of Australia, we find it very strange that residents in Tasmania don't want to pay registration in their own state. Mr Gutwein also acknowledged that anyone coming back on the Spirit of Tasmania must be placed into a strict 14-day quarantine, but when we were there on Thursday, most people were not following the directions given. Some pulled over to get out and get a drink and some food from the local IGA supermarket, while others, like these travellers, decided to stop for a bit of roadside coffee and biscuits before heading off on their journey again. This behaviour is completely unacceptable. The strict 14 days quarantine is in place for a very good reason, and it was sad to witness even residents coming home breaking the new laws. The cases of people testing positive to COVID-19 in Tasmania has climbed to 66, and sadly, a woman in her 80s has passed away in hospital and has become the first person to have passed away from COVID-19 within Tasmania. Across Australia, the cases of people testing positive to COVID-19 sits at 4,093 cases. It seems the government still wish to let the people know in Tasmania always at the same time the ABC News are broadcasting. It is very hard for people in Tasmania to get up-to-date information with what's correct and the number of people testing positive to COVID-19 in their state, as the Tasmanian government are not transparent enough. Other states across Australia deliver the information of new cases of COVID-19 in their community almost immediately, and begs the question, why isn't our Premier and government following the same suit of other states of Australia when telling their people of how many new cases of COVID-19 has entered the state? On early Thursday morning, we attended the Spirit of Tasmania terminal to watch everyone was checked when they were disembarking the ferry, and what we witnessed was frustrating. There were no police present at the terminal until much later. In fact, when everyone had left the terminal, 3 police officers pulled up and chatted around their police car and were not exactly enforcing the strict 14-day quarantine rule to anyone because everyone had already left and were already starting their journey across the state. We did notice many interstate plated caravans and camper trailers and camper vans. One couple in this van from Queensland told us from a distance they were not sick and were still going to travel the state as planned. However, Premier Peter Gutwein did say,
As I said, and I want to be clear, the only caravans that have been transported in the last 2 sailings by the Spirit this week have been vans that have been owned by Tasmanians.
no, Premier, not everyone that disembarked the ferry that morning was a resident of Tasmania and returning home. It is very simple for the Premier and Liberal government to say that, and it's concerning that at every press conference the Premier holds, he only makes mention of Tasmanians owning Victorian-plated cars and housing caravans in Victoria and bringing them home, but never mentions any other states like this one from New South Wales, this one from South Australia, or this one from Queensland. We were the only media there who got out of bed at 4 a.m. to greet the ferry as it docked in Devonport. We were the only ones there reporting the facts. The Premier was not there, and the Liberal government was not there, and the mainstream media have still the audacity to say we are fake news creating fear in the communities of Tasmania. Such lies and garbage on their part. We did have an active Facebook page with more than 11,000 likes, 6,000 followers, and then the Liberal government came along with their Premier's tick of approval and they contacted Facebook and had our page shut down. Whatever happened to freedom of press? Facebook contacted us late Friday evening and advised us that the Tasmanian government had lodged a complaint against us in relation to this post we put up on Thursday afternoon. The post had received 1,200 reactions, over 4,000 comments and 5,700 shares, and it's very clear it got to the Premier and made him worried. But that doesn't excuse the fact Mr. Gutwein had got our page shut down because we were telling the truth and making light of actions that were continuing to happen and that he had hoped would never come to light. He even made a point of mentioning our Facebook page had a large volume of traffic at a press conference, and all we were doing was inciting fear to the community. A completely false statement on his part. We have been honest and factual in all reporting via all our social media platforms, and if the Premier and the Liberal government actually returned our emails, telephone calls, or even took the time to talk with us, they would have thought differently, no doubt. But they, along with the Health Minister, have chosen to ignore us on every level. So much for the great communications method between government and media organisations the Premier prides himself on. We have since contacted Facebook Compliance and have lodged an appeal against the Tasmanian government complaint. We hope to hear back soon with a positive resolution. However, despite false reports made by mainstream media that we have completely shut down, we are still online via our YouTube channel, which is TasNews24, and of course our website at tasnews24.net. Now it seems Mr. Gutwein has gone back on his word. On Tuesday, he said in a media conference in Hobart,
Do not get on the TT line. What we will do is turn you around and ask you to go back.
it's very evident the turnaround and the sending of people back never happened, and that is why on Thursday we attended the Spirit of Tasmania terminal. Again, no other mainstream media bothered to cover this story. The Advocate newspaper, who is owned with the same company that runs the Examiner newspaper, decided they would run an article about us and label us as fake news, which is absolutely ridiculous considering we were on the ground reporting the facts of the story, a story they didn't bother to cover because it wasn't important enough for them. Instead, they decided to run an article about a girl who complained that we photographed her vehicle as she disembarked the ferry Thursday morning. The rule was all people, including residents, must go into a strict 14-day quarantine, but she found the time to go outside and pose for photographers and chat to a reporter. People commented on the Advocate's Facebook page, but the second anyone questioned the Advocate's intentions and story, they were banned from commenting any further. As you can clearly see here in a post that was sent to a person who questioned the Advocate, just goes to show you mainstream media will hype up stories to gain people's attention, but refuses to get out of bed in the early hours of the morning to report on the truth and facts of a story. Yet they have the audacity to say we are causing panic and fear in the community. Before our Facebook page was shut down, we had a lot of people telling us that they had received more accurate and up-to-date information about COVID-19 in Tasmania from us than any other media service. I guess that's why we had over 4,000 comments and almost 6,000 shares of our story. Looks like The Advocate have felt a tad jealous of independent media running the story. Maybe it's time they take more of an interest in the community. Then again, print media is dying across Australia. Now, from Wednesday this week, all caravan parks and holiday parks across Tasmania are set to close, and leaves the question, just where will the interstate caravan and campervan travellers go until they can get a spot on the Spirit? Before our Facebook page was shut down by the Premier and his government lackeys, we received a flood of messages from people seeing on social media pages of Tasmania residents offering properties, driveways and backyards as temporary parking hub for those who won't have a place to go. And of course, there was a fee associated with the offer. With the Premier failing to get out in the community and hear people's opinions and views of the COVID-19 situation within Tasmania, it makes it very difficult for him to know what is exactly going on in his community. The Premier has absolutely no idea of all the posts on social media advertising these shonky deals of accommodation. If he did know any of them, he most certainly would have addressed them in a media conference, but nothing as yet. Most Tasmanians are following the new rules that continue to grow as days and weeks go by, but there are a handful that don't seem to take this matter seriously and are looking for a quick way to make some extra cash. We have given our information to police after a few days ago Tasmania Police contacted us and wanting copies of all the vision we had of the people coming off the Spirit and breaking the strict quarantine rules by going shopping instead of going directly home. Since our story went viral on Thursday, the Premier decided to put in place some new rules when entering our state. Mr Gutwein said that anyone coming in, residents or travellers, will be greeted at the ferry terminal and bused to a facility to enter into a strict 14-day quarantine. Our cameras were there this morning and watched how people were moved under escort to a parking lot in Devonport, where they were to leave their vehicles, only taking their personal belongings. Then they were told that they had to board a bus and start their journey to a facility that would see them locked down in a strict 14-day quarantine. Again, no other media decided to report on this, and with people concerned about not getting enough information, we would have thought this would be a story for mainstream media to cover. But it appeared not. It seems this COVID-19 situation has everyone concerned here in Tasmania and right across Australia. Our way of life is changing and every day brings a new set of rules and regulations for us to follow. So people rely on the media to help guide them through any new information that comes to light. It should be right here, right now, that all media come together and report the truth and facts about what is happening in our state. It seems like all media across Australia are banding together to help support people and deliver information truthfully. But here in Tasmania, the media still wish to play the childish games and not work hand in hand. Now should be the time that mainstream media and independent media work together so that everyone has a better understanding of the ongoing situation with COVID-19. Of course, we are more than happy to work with everyone, but it's a two-way street, and sadly it seems like other media are just keen to break stories first than reporting the events that shape our people and communities. We hope that the negativity by other media and the push to break us down will be put aside and we can all work together. Well, you can keep up to date via our website at tasnews24.net, and of course, as soon as we have an outcome on our Facebook issue, we will let you know. Until next time, take care of yourself and others. Bye for now.